was this a possibility of maybe a Man United, a Chelsea swap, Nkunku for possibly Alejandro Garnacho. In addition to that, there were reports coming out today from France that suggest that Manchester United were interested in Christopher Nkunku. It's not the first time we've been linked to him. Of course, we were linked to him in January. We were linked to him last summer for potential loan deals. KG, I'll start with you. How would you feel about that? I mean, with a swap deal as well, someone young, like how is that? How's that going to be? I mean,
I don't think even in the article it probably wouldn't be a swap. It'd be a sale and a sale type of thing.
It might be a sale and a sale but it's basically Matt Law says Chelsea and Man United weigh up deals for Nkunku and Garnacho to move in opposite directions. Chelsea also in talks over Gittings, with Borussia meeting expected to take place in the US during the Club World Cup. Obviously that's separate, but it would imply maybe it's not a swap. It might just be they're two separate deals that they work on whilst they're just having these discussions. But thoughts on them both, I guess.
Look, we're Loophole FC, working with Loophole FC. And I don't know what they're thinking, but I can imagine the Garnacho thing has definitely changed the direction of how they was going to solve situations. Because, there was that thing about time being a healer. Wherever time was a healer before, let's say with the Garnacho thing, it's just they're back to phase one again in terms of their relationship. So now Garnacho almost robbed them of saying, hey, we can just fix it on the 7th of July. So now we have to be creative. And this could be one of the creative things. Am I excited about Nkunku? Absolutely not. Flex was speaking about him before, saying, he's this, he could be that. I've never seen it. I've never watched this person play and thought, need you at Man United. Never. Like, at one point in my life, thought, really like that Nkunku player. So then, do you end up having a similarity of where you got Mbeumo, you got Cunha, and Nkunku? What does that look like? What's the plan with that? It doesn't. I don't know how it fits. It just doesn't work for me personally. I don't see how it benefits Man United. We can play other players other than him. I'll try something else than bringing in Nkunku personally.
I'll tell you now, it's not happening. I would put my neck out on the line and say it won't happen, just because it stinks of that Mbeumo to Spurs type lazy journalism that we discussed like a few weeks back, where manager's gone over there, he's still in London, he could go there too, yada yada yada. Boring. Like look at the brass tacks. This is a 27-year-old player who's had a major injury in the past 2 years, who's come off 20. I think I just checked, 27 games, 3 goals. That's less than Garnacho. So we're gonna trade a player that is 7 years younger, with more promise, definitely more ability, and more Premier League experience, more solid Premier League experience, for a player that can't even get into a Chelsea team that don't even know what their front line looks like. He could have been a centre forward when Nicholas Jackson was out. He tried it, wasn't good enough. Nah, never going to happen. I think it's just they've seen the Garnacho thing. They knew that Chelsea kind of wanted Garnacho, even though they've looked at other targets now. I think Bino Gittins is probably the closest from what I've seen, and I think if we're going to go for anyone in this list, go for him over Nkunku. But no, it's just not going to happen. I think it's lazy. I think Nkunku is probably going to leave Chelsea, but I think he'll leave the Premier League. I just don't think it suits him. Bless him. He's tried, and it happens to a lot of players, but I just don't think physically he's up for the Prem.
Yeah, just on this, so the article says Chelsea and Man United are weighing up the possibility of trying to send Christopher Nkunku and Alejandro Garnacho in opposite directions this summer. Nkunku and Garnacho both want to quit their respective clubs, and the prospect of them trading places has not been ruled out, although there is no expectation of a swap deal being negotiated. Separate transfers involving Nkunku and Garnacho moving in opposite directions would solve headaches for both United and Chelsea, but the clubs are yet to hold direct talks on the matter this summer. So, James, that does sound a bit like of a nothing burger, doesn't it? Whereby they're saying, well, this theoretically could happen.
Everyone's thinking about it, yeah. Well, we thought about this in January as well. This was a topic in January. So, I think that there's a reality in it being a thought. It should be certainly noted that if anybody, Christopher Vell would know Nkunku very, very well in terms of the type of player he is and what to make of him, given that he certainly was there, I think, when they brought him to Chelsea, and he was there with him at Leipzig at one point. So on both occasions, you would know him quite well. I wouldn't 100% rule these things out when these things happen, but the way I look at it is more like this. It's going to be hard to shift Garnacho. I think that is a problem. It mentions Villa in there, who are one that I'm still keeping in the back of my mind as if they figure out how to get some money in the door, that they'll be interested in him because they wanted a player like him. They wanted Rashford, but they're not getting Rashford. So, Garnacho might be an option for them. But I think of it more like, could it solve a problem where we take him on loan? Because that's what was being discussed by us in January. From what I recall, United were looking at a loan, not a purchase at the time, something that's lower risk. Could it solve a problem? Take the player on loan. It gives Chelsea a little bit of space, a little bit of money. Maybe he gets some minutes. Maybe there's an option in there. And then that frees them up and they buy Garnacho and it gets that off our hands. And from a PSR perspective, huge benefit to us just to sell Garnacho. Like, that's kind of how I look at it. Like, unfortunately, it's a bit of an accounting way of looking at it. But like, would I take Nkunku on a loan if it helped us sell Garnacho? Yeah, I would do it. I'm not saying it's the ideal circumstance, but I would do it in that respect. And it might be one of the only ways we get a deal done. And I think we have to be open to some things like that. That's probably what the thinking is. Not saying that there's even a good chance of it, but that's what the thinking is. But I do know in January they really didn't want to buy him. They really wanted at most a loan with an option for Nkunku, and that's why it didn't go anywhere back then as well.
Marcel, what are you saying about this one? Nkunku and Garnacho, separate deals, not a swap. Would you be open to Nkunku at Old Trafford? I mean, I suppose maybe ticks a box in the sense of can play up front, can play in the 10, so he can play in those positions that Ruben likes. What do you think about it?
I mean, before his big injuries, like Dev's mentioned, he would look to a really good player at Leipzig. Obviously, I haven't seen him enough in the Premier League and hasn't really been able to make his mark, simply because Chelsea buy so many footballers and he's had a few horrible injuries, hard to build form. But I don't like the player overall as well, for similar sentiment that KG has, really. I've never really looked at the player and said, I need him at Manchester United Football Club, or this is going to be an amazing player at the football club. And we've already got kind of Xerxes that can play the false 9 type position, which is what Nkunku kind of played for a period of time and was kind of like a forward but could drop into the 10 spaces. I need a focal point 9. I would rather go into the free market than get an Nkunku. Jonathan David is around, and just in general, as Manchester United Football Club, we need to go into the free market then, and the loan market this summer, to get more players in, if it's out very, very necessary anyway. For me, I think that's another avenue that we need to go down, because I'm not liking what I'm seeing right now. Everyone's really bringing it to the front of my attention that it's 2 weeks until preseason starts, and Ruben made it adamantly clear that he needs a preseason to teach the players the systems, the patterns, the rhythm, the rotations of position and the movements within the team. And if he doesn't have his full squad, it's a hindrance. So I need players to go out and I need players to come in immediately within the next 2 weeks. I should be hearing from Sir Jim as well in the next 3 weeks or so, just so that we're getting regular communication. It needs to happen.
I tell you now, Marcel, if after last week you said we need to hear from Omar Barada, then like a day later, Omar Barada came out and said something. If Sir Jim, like an interview drops with him, like tomorrow or something.
Now, there's a chance of that, because we've got this new training ground opening up in like a week, and I almost expect he'll do something about that, because the whole revamped Carrington's supposed to be ready for them returning in 2 weeks. So I kind of think there might be some words that come out about that too. So you might be right, Marcel, in the end.
I'm really looking forward to seeing how that revamp looks, by the way, because some of the renders look amazing.